Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Flying Through the Helicopter Flying Handbook. In this video, we're going to continue our discussions from Chapter 11 on emergencies. And in particular, we are going to talk about vortex ring state. Now, vortex ring state, formerly known as settling with power, is a topic that has sparked a lot of debate in helicopter circles. In fact, here you can see in the Helicopter Flying Handbook, they clearly say vortex ring state, formerly referenced as settling with power. And you will find some people that will argue that they are not the same thing. And, there's a lot of interesting discussions that people seem to like to have regarding vortex ring state. And I'll just kind of leave it at that for now. So, what is vortex ring state? We talked about this earlier when we talked about aerodynamics. And the simplest way to explain it is that you are descending into your own turbulent wake. And if you apply more power to try to get out of it, you just make it worse because you generate more of that turbulent wake, your descent rate goes down, and it's just a vicious cycle. So the Helicopter Flying Handbook talks about, what's going on here. They have one picture at least that talks about what is going to happen aerodynamically. So if we have a look at this picture, they'll show you that what's happening is you're going slow, right? So here's the three conditions that you have to be in this condition. You have to have a vertical descent of at least 300 feet per minute. You have to be applying at least 20% power, and you have to be below ETL, effective translational lift speed, which again is typically 15 to 23 knots for most helicopters. So if these three conditions are met, you could potentially get into vortex ring state. Now, how do I get out of it? We'll talk about that in a little bit. All that's necessary is to eliminate one of those three conditions, and then I can't possibly be in it anymore. So here at the tips of the rotors, we have our typical tip vortices, and this is something that you get with any airfoil. If it's an airplane or a helicopter, doesn't matter. You're going to get this. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. You have high pressure on the bottom of the airfoil, in this case a rotor, and some of that high pressure air just cheats and it escapes around the tip of your airfoil. And that's where you get these tip vortices. Now, if you start descending rapidly, you're getting into this garbage air and you're increasing power. When you increase that power, it increases the size of these vortices. Now, if you're in a big descent, what also can happen, remember that normally I'm going to suck air down as I'm flying my helicopter, unless I'm in an auto rotation, and then the air goes the other way. We just talked about that in recent videos. Here, what's happening toward the inside of this rotor disc, the air is rushing up, and once again, it's creating an additional vortex, if you will, here. And this is that donut shape, as they refer to it in the book. Okay, so that's vortex ring state, kind of what it is. We mentioned briefly, how do I get out of it? Well, there are two techniques that you can use to get out of a vortex ring state. There's what I would call the traditional recovery technique, where you increase your airspeed, lower the collective a little bit, and exit the vortex. Typically, you will exit forward. So you push the cyclic forward. That cyclic forward is going to cause the airspeed to pick up, and it will also fly you out of that vortice. You're dropping the collective a little bit. You do that, and that reduces the size of those vortices. So that's pretty much what's going on with this traditional recovery. There's also the Vachard technique. So this is named after a Swiss guy. Surprise, surprise, his name is Vachard. And this is another technique that in many cases might get you out a little quicker. So instead of exiting to the front, you basically exit to the side. And how does that work? If you are flying a standard helicopter, you're going to push right cyclic. That's going to cause you to move to the right. Now, I want to slide to the right, not simply turn to the right. So in order not to turn, but to slide sideways, I have to apply opposite pedal. So it's right cyclic and left pedal. So I will slide straight out to the side. Now there's a couple of things that this helps me do. When I hit the left pedal, it keeps me from turning, but it also increases the tail rotor thrust. So now the tail rotor is going to help me push out to the right. I can actually raise the collective, and I can get out of this fairly quickly. Now, why do I slide to the right instead of the left? There's a couple reasons. Number one, I can make most use of the tail rotor thrust in a standard helicopter by going to the right, because I have a tail rotor set up to thrust me to the right by sending the nose to the left, if you will. Also, the right blade is not the retreating blade, it's the advancing blade. So I have more air over the right blade. So I'm going to get the advancing blade out into clean air quicker. Now, of course, like everything else, there are a couple of errors that you could make. So let's start with the traditional recovery, where you might have too much lateral speed in order to enter into vortex ring state. You're going too fast. Another error is that you could decrease the collective too much. So you start sinking out really badly. And of course, sinking out is not what you want to do here. Now, when it comes to the Vachard technique, you could get a little bit crazy on that lateral cyclic. Turn the thing up on its side, basically. That's a little bit too much. And you might fail to maintain your heading. Well, it probably means you didn't put in enough left pedal when you did that. One other thing I wanted to mention, if you look in the book, they will talk about how to enter, and they say basically start in an out of ground effect hover, and then let it start to descend. One of the examiners that I use quite a bit actually recommends a different way to enter this maneuver, and he likes to set it up as a steep approach, because practically speaking, that's where you're probably going to run into this situation. So he will have somebody enter a steep approach, and then try to increase power in order to arrest a descent and get into vortex ring state that way. Okay, enough talking. Let's go fly. All right, so here we are at the Mount Pocono Airport. Let's go do some vortex ring state maneuvers. All right, I'm going to slow myself down and I'm going to try to perform a steep approach. Vortex ring state. And that's all for this video. We'll see you in the next one.